most of my career, I've leveraged prime lenses as my go-to for almost any shot sequence that I would want to create. I would switch between lenses depending on the shot I was capturing. However, since I've started using the Nikon Z8 and the 24 to 70mm combo, I rarely switch lenses. What I want to do with this video is talk about why this combo is so powerful for me and why I lean on this for almost all of my productions now. What makes this lens truly versatile is how it pairs with the Nikon Z8. I'm able to cover a scene so much more efficiently, which is crucial for documentary filmmaking. The range from 24 to 70 allows me to cover a scene without having to change a lens, which means I'm always ready for the next shot. The second aspect is the autofocus. This is one that's actually changed the way in which I capture a scene. In the past, I would always think of it as kind of shorter, quicker shots versus being able to coordinate or orchestrate a more complex shot. With the ability to have autofocus, I can do longer takes where it keeps the subject in focus. And it's not just necessarily hitting an autofocus point in the camera and just let it do its thing. I'm still 100% in control of the camera by using the side handle and choosing the point of focus that I want in the frame. The other aspect of the autofocus that I'm really impressed in is the quantity of shots that are usable versus when I used to pull focus on my own. I got fairly good at pulling focus on my own, but find since I've transitioned to autofocus, the percentage of usable shots has increased dramatically, which for me makes this an incredibly invaluable tool that I can't even imagine myself going back to the days of pulling manual focus because of how effective this tool is for me when I'm out shooting. Another aspect of the autofocus system that I love with the Nikon cameras is the ability to select a subject in frame and then have it latch on to the eye on the subject you're filming. Once it's selected or it's latched onto that specific point in the frame of the subject's eye, it will show the box starting to track on that subject's eye. If there's a scenario where the head is turned, the box shows up a little bit bigger to show that it's still analyzing that part in the frame, but it hasn't latched onto an eye. Once that eye comes back into frame, it turns into a smaller box on your subject's eye to let you know that it has captured that eye itself. The next aspect into kind of the transition from prime to zoom lens was aperture. With prime lenses, obviously it's a faster lens and you can shoot in lower light conditions. However, with the Nikon Z8 and the ability to go to higher ISO levels, the fact that it's a 2.8 lens doesn't matter anymore. I can just jack up that ISO, still get a clean image, and then still be able to have the access to that wide focal range to use for my shooting. The last couple things I want to show you are the autofocus modes I use most often, and then give you a case scenario where you're operating in very low light conditions when you're not able to go into a location beforehand to pre-light. I'm going to show you how you can now leverage ISO in combination with a lens that isn't as fast as maybe your prime lens scenario that you would typically be operating with. First off, right now I have selected, and this is kind of the main mode I use, is the single point autofocus with people detection enabled. You're gonna see how no matter where I move in the frame, that it's keeping focus on my eye, no matter kind of where I move. The second mode that I use sometimes, depending on the scenario, is the wide selection tool here, which then gives you a bigger box as your focus point. Kind of anything that's in that red spot or the red box is what the camera's going to focus on. Right now you'll see it's the background, and you can kind of move throughout it and it's still focusing on that background and not the subject. However, if I move the red box onto the subject, it latches focus onto me. I'm going to switch back to the other single point autofocus, and then I'm going to turn all the lights off in the space here. So you see it's caught my eye again. I'm going to turn the lights off and then show you how I can jack up that ISO and still continue filming. So with the remote handle, we're just going to go up, we'll say something maybe around 5,000, and you'll see how it's still tracking me when it's almost completely dark in here. Oh, I'll turn this light off at the back too. Just flip it down there. So in the space, there's a little bit of ambient light, but for the most part, this space is almost completely dark. I can go back to 100 ISO to give you a point of reference where we started. And you'll see how dark it is. Autofocus has a little tougher time because it doesn't totally know what to track in frame, but the second you jack up the ISO, you're seeing how it starts to find my eye in frame and is able to track again in this condition. Again, the light's not as flattering, but in case scenarios where you're not able to go in pre-light, this is a nice thing to have as a feature set when operating with a zoom lens. For me, this has become the perfect documentary lens. It covers everything I need from wide establishing shots to intimate close-ups. The 24-70 gives me the flexibility to adapt quickly on the fly, which is crucial when working in conditions that are unpredictable. If you have any questions or want to find out more, please visit PrestonKanak.com.